Alright, this is a tutorial for the first class of the game design. Yada yada yada. So teachmccone.com, yada yada. So first we're going to do is install. We're going to make it's just the first part of making a platformer game. Um, where you're going to learn how to make the platformer. We're just going to do the basic mechanics, just make it so we can have a player jump around. First you're going to do is make sure you have Unity installed. That's all we're going to need initially. So if you just go to unity.com, used to be unity3d.com, click on get started, it's going to go to this area. You're going to have to pay $2,040 a year. No, actually, just go down here and you can just do the student or you can do personal, which this is one of the reasons why I like Unity. Is just because even when you're done with school and you're not a student anymore, you can still make it, you can still utilize it. You just won't have some of these like things that don't actually matter, to be honest. It's like plug-in stuff. And if you do, eventually, you can always do that. Once you start making money, but you can even make games for the purposes of selling, and you don't have to pay them anything until you start making a significant amount of money, which I think is awesome. So anyway, you're gonna want to go through here, get your student license or get not the student license, follow through the various prompts, make an account, so on and so forth. They're gonna actually have you install two pieces of software. It's gonna be Unity Hub and then the Unity game engine itself. Okay, so once you have those, you'll see that you'll have this Unity Hub here. Now, yours will probably not have anything in it. Mine's going to have a whole bunch of things in it because I've been making all sorts of games and what have you. But the purpose of the Unity Hub here is just so that it keeps track of the various versions of the Unity engine that you have installed. Once you start making a game, you should not upgrade your engine. Like, you should just leave it there. Unless you have a specific reason that you need, like something doesn't work in an older version, or there's a new feature that you potentially need. The reason being is that whenever you upgrade it, it could potentially make your whole project not work. So usually you don't want to have multiple ones, but that's also one of the reasons why you do have them, is because you might have one project that uses this Unity engine, and then another one uses this, and another one uses this, and that way you can open them up with the different versions of Unity. Okay, so that's the kind of the whole reason. They have these other tabs too here, but really you could just search for stuff. I don't use any of this, but that's kind of the main reason. What you're going to have to do here, it might make you log into, so there might be like a thing to log in, see the newer version. You can keep updating the hub. That's not a big deal. It's just you don't want to upgrade your versions of your games, okay? But all your projects, yours will be empty. They'll show up right here. And if I scroll down, you can see like this one says editor versions 21, blah, 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 blah. But if you see, if I go down, I'll have versions that are older. But I can always click on them and I can upgrade it to any of the other ones that I have currently installed, which I don't want to do that, but that's why that exists. Okay. And you can install new ones here. You just go install editor, and then you can see whatever version that you currently have. I would just say do the ones that, whatever the newest is of the official releases. Don't do any of these pre-releases. Do these. Okay, so that's not what I meant to do. All right. So for our intents and purposes, what we're going to do is just make a new project. I would make a folder on your desktop that you save all of your schoolwork, your Unity projects, things like that. So we're going to do a new project. Click on new project, and it's going to give me a couple of options. Now, really, the Unity engine is the same no matter which one of these templates that you choose. You can see they actually have pre-built games. They're not currently installed. You can see all these little clouds. It means that I had to install them. But if you want to look at them, like especially, I wouldn't worry about it right now because you're not going to understand it. But later on, if you want to, you can always click on these and then look and see how they made those things, right? For the most part, you're going to see that you have these ones here, these kind of top three. There's also a mobile core, 3D mobile core, blah, blah, blah. These are just basically pre-set up, like the cameras, the correct settings, and the inputs, the correct settings, things like that, so that you have a good start. We're going to do a platformer game. So in our case, you'd either use this one, the URP, but the Universal Rendering Pipeline. Basically, it's just a pumped up version. You'll see that things are actually going this way, but for now, let's just keep it the regular 2D core. Now what we're going to do is for your project settings, just do your last name and then just call it platformer. You'll notice that I always write in camel case, which means I start with a lowercase for my first word, then every subsequent word is uppercase. You can also use underscores. All right. What you don't want to do are spaces. Now, the name here, the project name, actually can have a space, but once you're inside of Unity, you cannot use spaces. It will mess things up. or at least you should attempt not to. So I could also do this would be fine if I put an underscore in between. I'm just going to go ahead and call it Cone Platformer. Then you're going to want to choose a location. I'm just going to go ahead and you can see I already have a folder for projects that I put all of my Unity projects in. You can see I have quite a few of them. I have more than this. These are just the ones I'm currently working on. So just make sure you select the folder where you want, and then just have that folder selected, and then you'll hit Create Project. This is actually going to take a bit of time. It takes a really long time for it to start a new project. Every time you open up Unity, it's a little bit of a drag how long it takes. But the first time you create a project, it takes the longest. Also, if you switch to a new project, it will also take a long time because it has to basically kind of what do you call it? Unwrap all of the packages so that you can work on your project. All right, so I'm actually going to pause my video, and then when it's done, I'll show you where we're at. All right, so it finally uploaded. It took a couple minutes, and I have a relatively fast computer, so yours might take longer. Like I said, after you do it the first time, it'll be quite a bit quicker. I'm just going to do a general real quick overview of what we have here, and then you'll see where we're at from there. That's interesting. Okay, so this is the general interface. You got your file, save, close, open project. Switch between the project. Also, where you will build it. So when your game's ready to be distributed or to test, you can build it and run it from here. There's edit, which has copy, paste, change name, things like that. We don't really need you to do too many things with this. We'll play with the project settings a little bit and the preferences a little bit occasionally, but that's not going to be a huge thing right now. Assets, that allows us to basically import either like packages, so like things that are pre-made that you can get from like the asset store and things like that, as well as you can create some of these various objects that you might need inside of your game. There's also game object, and that's basically those are things, again, they're kind of like the assets. It's very similar. But assets are actually things that are outside of your scene, generally speaking, like it's an outside file. Well, a game object, these will be things that actually exist inside the scene. Like they won't be a separate file; they'll just be part of this Unity file. Okay, you'll see the distinction as we go on. Components are things that go onto your game objects, so they'll add additional functionality. So you can basically create what we call an empty object. And it's just all it literally has is it's just an object. Now it's called W, but it's just an object, but there's nothing on it. It's just an empty transform. But we can add components to it that will be like, oh, I want it to have, where are you? 2D animation. We'll just do this. I was going to look for sprite renderer, but I'm not sure what's put. So we'll do a sprite renderer, and then we'll give it the basic graphic. I don't know what's giving me all these bone things here. So we'll say a knob. And now you'll see, if you look closely, it's now got a graphic associated with it. So basically, you can have all these different attributes that you can basically apply, which are the components that allow you to do, that allow the different objects to do things. We don't usually add the components this way. I usually just do it the way I showed you. Window, all the window things that you typically expect. What I would suggest is generally most programs have that. Let me see if this one has it. Layouts. If for some reason you screw your layout out, you can always go to reset all layouts, and that will just reset the interface. So that way it's you're not confused. There's also help, and you can click on the scripting reference, which this is very useful because occasionally you're trying to figure out some sort of thing, like, oh, I don't know how to use get component. Right, and then you'll see, oh, here's component, get component, and then it'll have like an example on how to do it. We use this one, but so that can be useful as well. I usually just type into the web browser to do it, but that's what that's also for. So that's the top elements there. Again, you might also need to log in. You can see I'm logged in here. It should actually run even when you're not logged in, but you're going to want to just in case, because some of the things might not function the way that you would expect. Hierarchy is basically everything that's currently in the scene, meaning like it's in the game. So any game objects, right now you can see we have the scene itself, and then we have a camera. And earlier I had made, I can make a 3D object, make a cube, right? And so let's, we're in 2D view because I did a 2D game, but you can see the cube, right? So now there's a cube there. Any object that exists is going to show up in this hierarchy, okay? So that's what the hierarchy is for. Pretty straightforward. Right here, you'll see we have the scene view. So scene view is basically our working view. We can lay all our elements around. You can see it's a 3D view in this case. Yours will currently be in a 2D view because we're working on a 2D game. So just leave it like that. That's fine, but just be aware that that's what that is. There's also the game panel, which is the view of the camera. Okay, so you'll notice that in here, I can't move my camera, but over here I can. Okay, so to move the camera, it's Alt, middle mouse button, click and drag. Okay, you can also scroll in with the middle mouse button, or you can do, if we're in 3D view, Alt and left mouse button, so your normal clicking button, that's rotate, and right mouse button is zoom in and out. So just Alt, middle, left, and right. Okay, that's how you're going to navigate. You can also do, which is a neat functionality, you hold the right click, you see a little eyeball turns, and then you can use your WASD keys, WASD, and you can move around. You just hold the right button down, you can move around like you're in the video game. So some people, particularly people who aren't, that don't generally work in 3D, they actually kind of like this format. So like a lot of the programming guys, because this they understand, they don't use this format as much. But if you're a 3D person, this you will totally get because most programs work the same way. So that's how you interact in here. We're going to leave that in 2D view, but just so you are aware. So then, yeah, we have the game view. That's the actual camera. You'll notice I can't navigate in there. I can zoom in and out. I'm just scaling the camera, though. We're not actually doing anything. So if I actually wanted to move my camera view or move my camera, I actually have to physically move the camera's position. So if you were to look here, you'll see what I'm actually doing is moving my camera, and that's what we're seeing. But so what you see in here is what the player is going to see. So when you do hit play, like even if I'm in this view, you're going to see that it's immediately going to go badink right to the game panel, and then you play the game. Okay, we don't have anything in here, so nothing's happening. Asset store, I don't know why that's still even in here because you can't access it this way anymore. It used to be an in thing. It used to be part of this panel. But more or less what it lets you do is you can go online, you log in your name, and then you can download assets, and then this is linked to it. It's one of the reasons why you want to make sure that you're logged in. Okay, but for now, you could just, I'm even going to pull that off. So any thing, if you grab the tabs, you can pull them in. I can click and drag and make this over here. Which is kind of nice. Or if I pull it off, I can then just hit the X and get rid of it. Okay. If you're missing any windows, I want it back. Just go to Window, and then it's somewhere in here, General, and let me see. Oh, I'm sorry, right there, Asset Store. So, yeah. Okay, so that's what this is for. On the right, you'll see the Inspector. Sometimes this panel will be other things, but most of the time it'll be Inspector. And basically, when you have an object selected, it will tell you all of the components and things about that object. So every object you have selected will have different components, and then you can change things about them. So like the position of this, right? And the scale. Let me lock that in. Ooh, I can change the scale. Whether it's on or off. Whether the mesh is on or off. Things like that, okay? Boss collider, you'll see. So that's what this is. It's basically all the things that are attached to that object show up in the inspector. It's how we interact with those things. On the bottom here, what you're going to see is you have project and console by default. Again, you might have different things down here, such as the animator, but when we get to that, or the animator, actually, put up there. But for right now, those are the two tabs. So the project panel is basically, you'll see that it's going to be by defaulting on this assets tab. These are files and folders that are attached to your project that come from an outside source. They merely mean that they are being referenced into this. Now, you can create objects inside of this program, but there will be a separate file. That's what I was talking about with this assets thing. Okay, so you can create your own assets inside of here. You can download assets. You know, like if, for instance, I want to make a sprite, right, a 2D character. That's going to be an image I make outside of Unity. In Unity, you do not make any of the content. It's merely putting the content together. So what you'll do is, you know, I'll make that in Photoshop or Piskel or whatever your favorite, you know, art app is. Export it out, and then all I'll do is I'll just drag it into this assets folder, and then I can put it into my scene. But these are basically, you can just look at this as the file folder structure of your project, and it will hold all of the things that you bring in, but they're not necessarily in the game themselves, right? It's not actually in the level. Things that are in the level show up here. This just holds the things that you can bring into that, okay? So that's kind of the difference. So you'll see as we go along, this is basically your file folder management. It's down here. And it just, you know, you throw your 3D models in there, throw your scripts in there, images, you know, various other assets and things. Console is meant for when you write a script. So in order for us to make this move, I'm going to have to make a script. And what that's going to do is when I write, if I write the script and if it's running fine, or if there's any errors or stuff, this is how the game will communicate with me. So it'll be like, hey, there's an error and it's on line blah 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 of this script, and then you can use that, go into the script, and then fix the issue. Hopefully, you can also do like a debug.log, and you can write like a message to yourself, like I want that when this guy touches this thing, I'm just going to say you hit me, because I don't have the code yet to set up to have him actually hit him, but I can just have like a message that it writes. So it's useful for basically debugging, troubleshooting. We use the console quite a bit. It's not something the player will ever see. It's just stuff that we as the programmer can utilize. And that's the basic overview of what this is. The other thing that you're going to need to do when you are working on this, which I should have mentioned earlier, is you are going to need Visual Studio Code. So you can just go here, go Visual Studio Code, yada, 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 code, Visual Studio Code, and you're just going to want to download. So they also have it for Linux and Mac. So it doesn't really matter what you're using. Unity also works for Linux or Macs. Just literally download it and install it, and you should be set up. Okay, so you're going to want to install that as well. Just hit download. It's free. There's also Visual Studio Code Community or Visual Studio Community. I can't remember which one it's called. You don't want that one. It's just because it's bigger, and this is a much lighter version. It's not as hard to work with. So once you do get that installed, what you're going to want to do is inside of Unity, just go to Edit, and you want to do Preferences. And you just want to make sure that where it says External Tools, you're going to make sure you switch this. It should show up, hopefully, here. You're going to want to choose the CC Microsoft Visual Studio. That's not the one you want. You want Visual Studio Code. It should show up right here. You might want to, save whatever you have, close out, and then open it back up, and hopefully it'll show up. If it doesn't still, what you can do is just go browse and then look for the program wherever it installs the exe file. Okay, but you just want to make sure that's set up. The reason why that matters is that way when you do create your code and you double click on it, it will automatically open up Visual Studio Code for you. And then we'll kind of talk about how to work with Visual Studio Code in an after video. But hopefully that's a good rough overview. I know it was relatively quick. But if you were in class and stuff, we've already covered this anyway. So, yeah, there you go. In the next video we'll do is we'll actually start making the platformer.